A man climbed into his own factory roof space and found 32 bodies laid out like a ritual. So in 1987, a man climbed into the ceiling space above his own factory cafeteria. He found 32 bodies, bound and arranged as if someone had planned exactly how they should be found. Among those 32 bodies was his own wife and all his 3 children. Park Sun-ja was a 48-year-old South Korean businesswoman who ran a company called Onehyang Chiding & Co., which means 5 oceans. On the surface, it looks like an ordinary business, but underneath, it was the financial front for a small secretive religious group she has built and led herself for years. Park had once attended the Evangelical Baptist Church and before that, the Jehovah's Witnesses. But at some point, she broke away from both churches and formed her own followings, built entire around her own teachings. She preaches that the world has become hopelessly corrupt and that its disruption was near. So her followers were told that only she could lead them to safety. Many of them believed her completely. They left their jobs, they left their family, some even moved in and worked for her directly, fully devoted to her vision of the world's coming end. At the same point, away from her followings, Park was under a very different kind of scrutiny. South Korean police were investigating her for swindling close to $9 million for roughly 220 people. As the fraud investigation moved closer to her, she began to be pressured, and her closest followers, many of whom she had given her everything they owned, started to sense that something was going wrong. So rumors of financial collapse spread among the people who lived and worked inside her organization. Then without warning, in late August of 1987, everything went silent. No explanation, no public knowledge of what was happening inside the factory ground where Park and her followers lived and worked. It was Park's own husband, Lee Kim-jong, a government official who had no involvement in her business or her religious activities, who eventually noticed there was something going wrong. What he found would shock the entire country. In the ceiling space above the factory's cafeteria, Lee discovered 32 bodies. Every one of them were bound and gauged. Among the dead were Park Sun-ja herself and all her 3 children. Investigators who examined the scene concluded that 29 of the victims, including Park, had been strangled, and the remaining 3, including 2 of her own sons and a factory manager, appeared to have hanged themselves. One disturbing question that remains is that it was the mass suicide who bound the gauged the people who were strangled, and who decided the order in which it has happened. To this day, no full explanation has ever accounted for exactly what took place in that room, or who among the dead made that final decision. The case did not end there, because Park had once been connected to a much larger religious movement, the Evangelical Baptist Church. So suspicion quickly fell on its leader, a man named Yoo Bun-hyun. Investigators discovered that money had been moved between Park's organization and Yoo's church in the past, and later prosecutors reopened the case 3 separate times in 1987, 1989, and again 1991. Each time of this investigation, under the different governments, every single investigation reaches the same conclusion. There was no provable connection between Yoo, its church, and the deaths inside the roof space. Yoo was never charged in the Onehyang case, though he was convicted separately in 1992 for defrauding members of his own church and served 4 years in prison for it. Later in 2014, Yu's name resurfaced on a national scale after one of his companies operated the ferry that sank in South Korea's Seoul disaster, killing over 300 people. As authorities searched for him, his body was discovered in a field, so badly decomposed that the cause of death could never be confirmed. So, till date, no one was never charged for what happened in that roof space, and the man everyone suspected was found dead before he had to answer for it.